Hello and welcome to the Level Up Lounge. I'm John. I'm here today. Dwayne's back, thankfully.
Howdy.
And today we are joined by Helmi Abdalhadi, who is the former House of Gaming Director at Serviceplan Middle East. So,
Correct.
Helmi, thank you very much for coming in and joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, guys. I've been watching the content for a little while now, and as somewhat of a fan, I think it's nice to also have the privilege to be here too. So thank you.
Delighted to have you here.
Yeah, perfect. So we wanted to have several different topic conversations with you today, but we wanted to start with game partnerships. And how we wanted to start that is maybe even just for the audience watching this, is to get your description or your understanding or even just educating them in terms of what the gaming advertising and partnership sort of industry looks like.
Right, sure, yeah. I mean, it's a great question to start off on. So advertising, I would say, or gaming advertising, it's quite simple. We'll start with that one, then we'll move on to partnerships, which I think is the more exciting one. A little biased there because I really enjoy partnerships and that kind of work, but advertising or gaming advertising is very simple. It's just doing your old-fashioned advertising or marketing just in the gaming world, whether that's putting products in the game, or working with influencers on small campaigns, or pushing the product in any type of normal advertising way, even media buying, but on mobile games. But as long as there is gaming angle, where you're reaching the gaming audiences that we have now, not just in MENA, but globally, that are massive, and you guys are the first people to know that. That's what I would describe as gaming advertising. Partnerships are still within the advertising realm, but I would say it's taking one more step up, which is you're a little bit more committed, and it's probably between one or two parties that are doing it for a certain duration, usually on the longer term. So I mentioned influencers with the first one as an example. That could just be like a week thing where the influencer goes, they stream online, they push a Mentos, gum, and then they move on. Then a partnership, maybe you're working with that influencer for a whole year. Or maybe it's two brands working together. That could be something like Nike doing a collaboration with Tencent and putting some Air Jordans in PUBG Mobile or in Fortnite through Epic Games. But there's a few other examples as well. Maybe there's something like a value-in-kind partnership is what we usually call it, which means that one of the two parties is providing some sort of service that they usually do to the other one. Maybe this is a non-gaming example, but the example I like to always give here is DP World and McLaren. So they sponsor McLaren, but it's more than that. It's a partnership and not just a sponsorship, because they also just ship the cars and the people, and they do all the logistics to actually get the Formula One team from point A to point B to point C throughout the year. So that's something where it's not just, hey, here's some money for putting my logo on your car. It's more than that. It's actually, how can we help each other take this to the next level? And then usually between these two parties, you'll have some weaknesses and strengths that kind of complement each other. Okay, you have the bigger audience, but we have the more or higher quality of product. So let's join forces and actually kind of maybe push that out to more people. So it depends on what you're trying to do. But usually the thing that excites me about this is the fact that you can actually make some sort of cultural impact with partnerships. There's actually cool things to be done with them because you're joining a lot of forces together. Okay. Hopefully that breaks it down.
Yeah, it's quite a detailed answer. I'm just thinking to myself, how did you get into this space? Because I feel like it's not something I want to say you wake up one morning, you're like, I want to get into gaming partnerships. It's like, how did that career path start?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to give you the shorter answer here so that I don't spend 20 minutes on this. But I actually started out in law and legal. So that's what my degree from my undergrad is in. Okay. It was a double major in economics and business law. And then when I first came here to Dubai, I was working as a paralegal. I had nothing to do with gaming. But then out of nowhere, I noticed that gaming was a bit on the come up. And one company specifically, they're out actually in London, in the UK. They're called 38 Entertainment. They created an esports team for Gareth Bale, the Welsh footballer. And I saw that one day while still working in law, and I was like, football and gaming? I like football, not like gaming. That's cool. That would be cool to work in.
Nice.
And so I just straight up reached out to them. And then one thing led to another. I ended up working with them, 38 Entertainment, as just strategy for a couple of years. And then I moved on to Serviceplan Group, which is kind of all-in-one marketing solutions agency. And I ran a department for them called House of Gaming. And so that is kind of the first one or two steps into actually getting me to then, after working in gaming and advertising, to take it one step further and say, okay, now that I've got the fundamentals there, I can actually take it one more level and do things like partnerships, actually maybe start to impact pop culture here and there, whether through gaming or maybe in the future not. But that's, again, the short answer into how I got here rather than like the 30-minute one.
Okay. And how much growth have you kind of seen in the region, whether it's in esports or in gaming itself? Like,
right.
How do things look from your perspective?
Yeah, man. When I first came back to Dubai after graduating from Canada, I mean, gaming was obviously a thing and people knew what it was, and there was still some agencies and some brands starting to do it. But I mean, you fast forward, I've been here now 7 years, you fast forward 7 years, it's like night and day. First, one of the very, very big turning points, obviously, as we all know in the region, is the government intervention. So you have not just here in the UAE, but also massively in Saudi, as you guys know, through the PIF and Vision 2030, the fact that they wanted to push gaming. And so what that did is that legitimized the industry for not just gamers and the audience and tourists, which is one of the primary motivators for doing that in the first place, but also brands. And so you start seeing all these brands actually being like, oh, okay, so if they're saying it's legit, then it probably is, and we should get involved. And so you fast forward 7 years, and someone like me has the opportunity to work in gaming partnerships, something that niche and specific in MENA, which is really cool to see. Because a few years ago, again, I wouldn't say it's non-existent, but that growth has been tremendous. It's been really, really something special to see and be a part of.
Okay. And going back to the partnerships as well, how do you determine a successful partnership? What makes people renew their partnership with you?
Sure. Okay, I would say there's probably two answers I can give here. I can give like the corporate one, which is, let's be real, KPIs need to be hit, and you need to, you can do cool stuff, but it has an impact on that bottom line, right? So that's probably one way of doing it. But the preferred method I have is just kind of seeing what people are saying, man. Are you actually making an impact? Do people care? Do consumers care? Gaming at the end of the day is a consumer industry, right? I mean, you have these people who play games. At the end of the night, or after they get home from work or school or whatever it is, are they talking about the partnership that you helped to work on? Are they talking about what you think are cool things that you did with brand X or influencer Y or PR agency Z? So I think for me, yeah, KPIs are important, and they actually, I mean, obviously, they help you understand whether something worked business-wise, but are you actually making an impact on the consumer and the region and pop culture? That's probably the biggest success indicator, and the one that will more likely determine if you're going to have a second go at that partnership and do more things in the future, next year, the year after, or whatever.
Okay, interesting.
I think it's on that point where you mentioned there that, yes, the KPIs might be right, but if the brand aren't feeling like they're getting the conversations going around what it's been done, then they're less likely to come back in. You could sit there and tell them it worked because of X, Y, and Z, but unless they feel that real value add, they're probably not then going to go for it again.
Correct. And you're absolutely right, because if you assign a budget to doing something cool, then you are expecting those KPIs anyways. So probably hitting them is the bare minimum. But are you actually making an impact? I think that's, like you're saying, John, is what ends up getting them to come back next year and be like, okay, that was awesome. Let's do it again this year. And let's make people talk even more. And let's do and. And that's how you get to hopefully something like a successful partnership.
Oh, cool, definitely. And I wanted to loop back into what we were talking about in terms of sort of the MENA gaming scene. Now, you said over the last 7 years or so, you've seen it grow exponentially.
Yeah, man.
What do you see, or how do you feel the industry is going to move in that direction next? Do you feel like, because obviously esports has propped itself up somewhat to kind of be the top of the food chain from what we're seeing. But do you feel like gaming has a bigger part to play that we're not just seeing just yet?
Listen, I think esports is probably at that premier position right now because of what I spoke about earlier, which is a little bit of government backing. So, you know, you have the Esports World Cup in Riyadh in Saudi, and then obviously here in UAE you have things like Blast Premier in December for the last couple of years, and a few other events here and there. But I think for me, still gaming is probably the bigger bubble there. I mean, especially if you're doing partnerships. Esports is more niche and it's more hardcore, so you're actually more likely to make that impact that I was talking about earlier because people are way more passionate about it. And so they will talk and they will do and they will buy and they will on and on and on and on. But gaming is still, while not maybe people aren't as passionate. I mean, let me put it this way. The average gamer is not as passionate as the average esports fan.
Yeah.
But I would still say there's more gamers than there are esports players or esports consumers.
Good point.
And I would say that's why for us, people who are very much in the industry and we go at it every day, esports is top of the food chain, while gaming maybe isn't so much so. But to be honest with you guys, if I'm getting ready to work with a brand, part of the education I do is telling them that actually gaming is the bigger piece of the pie here. There are more people that we can reach through doing just general pop culture / gaming things. But if you really want people to be crazy about what you're doing, then maybe esports is the way, because those people they're in it. They're like in it. And I say that because I'm in it a bit too much. But I'm in it.
Is that also come from where you're getting those immediate eyes on what it is that you're distributing? So with esports and the competitions that you mentioned, like the World Cup with Blast, people are fixated on that period of time that is live. Whereas with gaming and a partnership over a period of time, you're looking at a long-term relationship with the audience to see what the response is. Whereas esports is short, it's quick, you're getting all the eyes, whether it be millions of viewers, whatever it might be, that whatever it is you're putting to your audience, they're seeing it because they're tuned in for that period of time, and there's no way of getting around it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I would actually describe what you're talking about graph-wise as gaming is a bit more consistent, so it's a bit more horizontal. But with esports, based especially around these events, so around these big things that happen, let's take a CS major or the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, or a big Dota finals or whatever it is. You'll have these peaks when everyone's interested, and that's exactly when that distribution / advertising happens that you were talking about. And then maybe there's a bit of a dip because it's a bit of a cooling off period. You don't want to saturate the esports season with too much content, so that therefore you're not getting as much advertising space, and then it'll come back up. Yeah. And so that only adds to your point about it being such a good way to talk about, or maybe advertise, or maybe hopefully through a partnership, the product that you want to get across. Whether you're, I don't know, Mercedes-Benz, because they do a lot in gaming and esports, by the way, specifically esports, or whether you are something on the complete other, I don't know, another service or good that's completely different from cars that I can't think of right now. Maybe I'll watch.
What about, how are you finding this region in terms of, you've obviously had a background in the UK, in Toronto, now you're back in the region. What can this region offer that the other places in the world can't?
Opportunity, man. It's where it's at, It's where it's at. And I'm very happy about that, obviously, because I'm Arab. But we go back to the government-backed initiatives. Yeah. But honestly, it's not just that. Yeah. It's the fact that people here, and I always say this about not just gaming, but honestly, most things in cases of pop culture, people in the region here are just very passionate about the things they do, the things they consume, the hobbies that they have. They usually take on more than just the role of being like an hour a week hobby. And so that's why, even for something like gaming, even if it is government-backed, but still the opportunity is here because people that work in it are just completely immersed in that world, and they are very passionate about it. Yeah, you're looking at me like you think I'm an example.
I can hear the passion in your voice when you say it.
It's true. And honestly, I am, and it's a big privilege to be adding back to that community and those people. But I think, so number one is the opportunity. The market's not as mature as obviously somewhere like London or Toronto or North America in general. And so people they still have that spark in their eye, and they still want to do all these cool gaming things and partnerships and advertising, but also publishing and. I mean, you guys have had some awesome guests on the show who have nothing to do with advertising, but they're still full passion and full just into it. I think that's what makes working in MENA specifically for this industry, probably the most special thing about it is that everyone is in it to win it. And even if you're competing with another agency or another whatever, actually, seriously, I can confidently say this: people are willing to play a positive sum game in which everyone wins. And there's a lot of collaboration that happens, and I really appreciate that. I think it's a bit rare to see that.
Have you seen any partnership trends that occur more in this region than other places in the world, or what trends, market trends have you spotted?
That's a great question, actually, especially because it's not been that many years that this has actually even been a thing in the region in the first place. But I would say that because it's not as mature as, like I just said, somewhere like London or Toronto, people haven't, I think, found the best ways to be creative with partnerships yet. So a lot of the things that I've seen over the last couple of years, and I'm guilty of this too, 100% by the way, is based around content creators and influencers. maybe as an advertiser, someone with an agency background, you're more familiar with that route. So you're more comfortable pitching it to clients and brands and partners, etc. And so you get that approval because they're also familiar with this approach. And then you just go from there. And obviously creators in our region just have a lot of power. And people listen to them, man. So for example, last year we worked with Ahmed Qahtani, who's Shong. He's one of the biggest friggin' gaming creators in the world, not just MENA. But maybe we could have done something else, something that's a bit more creative. So I would say that trend of influencers and creators is definitely there over the last few years. What I'd like to see is, I brought up the DP World and McLaren example, right?
Yeah.
You take those two. I mean, if you don't know anything about Formula One, you'd be like, wait, what are you talking? What's going on here?
We don't. Not me. But
right.
Someone
You'd be
else.
like, what's going on here? But I think the fact that it's unexpected, but they also are actually adding value to each other.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would want to see moving forward.
A good collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
Two opposite brands, so to speak.
Yes, correct.
Okay, interesting. This might which leads me to my next question, which might tie in a little bit. But what brands would you like to see outside of F1? Would you like to see enter the region?
Man, that's a great question. What brands would like to see? I mean, I think a lot of brands just generally are already in the region. Are they doing gaming? No. Well, some are, to be fair.
Yeah.
Some are not. Specific brands. Oh man, it's a tough one.
Maybe from like a partnership perspective. I don't know if that makes any difference. Like, what companies would you like to partner with on your wish list, so to speak?
I would say that. Okay, I keep coming back to this, but honestly, it's because this is what drives the passion in my voice, is the stuff that actually makes an impact on people in pop culture. So, for example, right now, I think that gaming is definitely at the, I don't think it's unfair to say that it's at the epicenter of a lot of pop culture things happening in the world these days.
100%.
And it's a lot of where that, consumer voice is kind of created and then shipped back out to publishers or whoever it is that's actually, making decisions. When it comes to pop culture or shows or gaming or and what I would like to see is maybe some brands who are actually big enough to make an impact. So I know I just spoke about Formula One, but let's continue on that example just because it's a good one. Yeah, why not one of the F1 teams? I mean, they all do gaming and esports to some extent, obviously. I think maybe like Red Bull or Ferrari are doing it the biggest because they got esports teams and they do simulators and all that fun stuff. But it would be cool for them to do actually something that's just like, let's move away from simulator games and racing and all that stuff. Let's go to where pop culture actually is. I don't know, maybe like Fortnite or Marvel Rivals now, because that's picking up popularity.
Okay. Yeah.
Or something that's a bit more ingrained in gaming to make a bigger splash and a bigger impact. Yeah. So I would say any global brand like that is capable of making that splash, that's who I would like to see come to the region.
And I suppose these, with two kind of, as you put it, so let's say Formula One and Marvel, for argument's sake, with these two kind of powerhouses, you expect the numbers to be absolutely 100%. Huge. It's like a perfect partnership in some way.
100%. And honestly, forget the numbers. It would just be cool for something to happen with those two brands. Like I just talking about it or you bringing them up, automatically my head was racing and thinking about, okay, what could they do? Could they brand a car? Could they do this? Could they put it in the game? And on and on and on and on. But like we can get a lot more creative than that and then actually do something that's worth us three sitting here talking about it,
I think it would be great to see one of the local homegrown brands from the region actually being within like a Fortnite, like you mentioned. Like obviously Fortnite do a huge amount of collaborations globally. Correct. What's not to say one of the homegrown companies from this region become part of that? And I think that's where something so big as that could really put eyes on the region. Yeah. And we've spoke about it many times with many different people about how do you put the region on the gaming map. Yes, you can try and ship games from the region, develop games from the region, etc. But having that audience globally seeing something that is UAE or Saudi or wherever it might be and draw eyes back to the Middle East of where that's come from, I think that could have such a huge impact. And that's where I'd like to see some sort of partnership or collaboration take place with whether it be a Tisselat or a Do, or I'm talking one of the big sort of arms out of this region, having some sort of collaboration with a mainstream title that everyone knows and plays.
Yeah, like that would be cool. That would be cool. Speaking of that, last year I had the privilege of working with Abdul Latif Jamil Motors. They're one of the conglomerates over in Saudi, private. And they are, I guess you could say, the equivalent X100 of maybe Al Futtaim here.
Yeah.
So they are the Toyota Lexus dealer over in Saudi, and a few other markets in the Middle East as well. But those guys, they get it. They're all in towards gaming. They understand that it's a young population, that they have to be there for them over in Saudi. And so they get it, and they do a lot of cool gaming things. One of the things that we did last year, it was using Fortnite's creator mode. So it wasn't in partnership with Epic.
Yeah.
But we still find a way to do a campaign through Fortnite. So basically in Fortnite, you have to cut down trees in order to get resources to start building cover. That's kind of how the game flows if you just load it up. And so one of the ideas that the team had over at Serviceplan last year was to remove the trees from the game or create a map without any trees, and then ship it out to a bunch of players and content creators that we're working with without telling them, to surprise them that when they load it in, the thing that they need the most wasn't there. And the point of this was to kind of show how, by the way, also, if deforestation keeps moving at the current rate, guys, then it's difficult to play your game now. Imagine how difficult it would be to live life 50 or 60 years down the line. So that was something that was really cool. And we got a lot of people talking, which was nice. But you're absolutely right. It wasn't yet, so hopefully in the near future, actually in collaboration with Epic Games, who are the publishers of Fortnite.
Yeah.
It's still a step below that because we did it independently. So I think I completely agree that having one of these conglomerates, arms, big companies, as you're saying, actually make a splash globally and tell people, hey, this is where it's happening right now. Yeah, that would be cool, man. And that would be, I think it's due time.
No, I totally agree on that. But we wanted to kind of loop back into, obviously, you spoke about it earlier about how you got into game partnerships.
Yeah.
But I'm keen to sort of understand if there's someone who wants to get into this partnership or marketing field within gaming, what advice would you give them? Someone that's living and breathing it right now. What would you say to them about how they should go about it?
And I'm answering this for our region, I guess, right?
For the region, yeah.
I would say right now in the region, the current landscape of advertising gaming is a few different things. Number one is, just like my previous job, it's actually working in advertising at an agency. And so I think that's one of the best things you can do, because honestly, you get that advertising and agency fundamentals that really, really, I mean, I can say this now, sets you up for success in the future. That skill set is so important. And even though I still to this day, I think I learned a lot, but I haven't learned it all, that was something that was very important. So I would say maybe looking out to see which agencies are doing that and who are getting involved in gaming. And let me give you a cheat code here. Most agencies these days, unless you're living under a rock, are starting to do gaming if they haven't been doing it for a while. Number two is definitely publishers. So most publishers in the world now in MENA, just like any big tech company, they have two kind of verticals: sales, because you need that, and marketing, because you also need that. And so you have Tencent, you have Riot, and you have a few others that are now doing marketing in MENA and have been doing it for the last couple of years. They're the ones that I would say probably push more for things like partnerships, because they're legacy strong companies who have that power to bring to a partnership. But they are always on the lookout for some talent, man. I mean, I saw a job by Tencent posted not too long ago for marketing in Saudi, I think it was, or Dubai. So it's always there. You just have to be on the lookout. But I would say maybe starting with an agency is usually the right way to go, because it gives you that skill set and that fundamentals to actually be able to then succeed wherever you go after in gaming.
You mentioned agencies there, and now they're all doing gaming. Is that driven through just some sort of awareness of what's happening, or is there people in those agencies that really get it? Because sometimes with some of the agencies, I think that some of them are on it because it's a bandwagon and feel like we need to be in gaming.
Right.
Or are you, from your experience of being within this sort of circle, do you see it and go, yeah, there's someone within that agency that really gets gaming and can see the real value add? Because I think there's a big difference between
I agree.
We're doing it for the sake of doing it,
I agree.
or we're doing it because we wholeheartedly believe this is going to be very impactful in the future.
I agree. Let me answer your question in two parts. The first one being is why agencies get into it, and then the second one being how many are doing it in a way that actually could provide value back to the players later.
Yeah.
Why is... There's a few reasons here. First, like I mentioned earlier, that government legitimization is big, man. And so people started taking gaming just generally more seriously. Number two, though, is that brands also, maybe themselves, brands who are clients of these agencies, woke up and thought, Okay, no, there's a big audience there. And if I want to show my boss that I reached my KPI this year, I actually need to go after gaming, which maybe 10 years ago they would have never thought of. But now it's a big untapped audience that they can go and market their product to hopefully have a good quarter.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that sometimes, when we all have a boss, right? So, So I think that...
It happens, don't worry.
Right? It's crazy, man. At home, here, at the office, can I do right? I don't know. So I think that's the first part of that, is the fact that you have people who are willing to have it be legitimized by the government, but then also maybe are getting pushed by the brands and the people who are actually the decision makers in that situation. Are agencies doing it just to do it or not? Oh man, that's a good question. To be completely honest with you, I think over the last 4 years, I've come across agencies in both spaces. I think that I'm very thankful that where I worked previously at Serviceplan Group, man, they were in it, and I think they saw it coming, and this is why we started a few years ago. But a lot before many other agencies / brands, and so we were ready when that tidal wave hit, and when Gamers 8 became a thing, and when Saudi started really investing into gaming, etc., etc. So I think it kind of depends on the agency. But yes, if you're a brand and you're watching this, or you're a decision maker for or a marketeer at I don't know, Shalhoub, let's say, and you are wondering about doing gaming, I would definitely take a moment to vet the. Maybe not the agency itself, because I think all agencies have strengths and weaknesses, but the people who are actually going and doing the gaming work, because those people need to be gamers, man. You need to understand the community. You need to understand what you're saying and how you're saying it, and how your art looks, and how your ad looks, and how it's going to be perceived, and what people are saying online. I mean, gaming audiences are skeptical, man. And so you need someone that actually kind of gets it before you put out whatever it is you're putting out to a gaming audience. You need someone that can... gamify that and make it somewhat interesting to a gaming audience who are, they're skeptical.
Interesting.
And they drink a lot of water.
And spill. But just to finish up on this part, how would you identify a successful partnership?
I think I got to go back to my earlier answer, man. If you are fortunate enough to be doing it again the next year, you did something right the first year, and again, that doesn't necessarily have to be those KPIs. It could be the fact that you hop on Reddit when you get home after work that day, after it goes live, and you are looking at what people are saying, and they are hyped, and they are excited, and they want to see more, or they want more, or they actually go and buy the product. But people are actually talking about whatever it is you're doing in a positive way. And so you're actually making that impact that I was talking about earlier. And then they go and tell their friends, and then other people tune in. And let's say it's an event that you're doing, and suddenly the event is crazy big. But I think that's how you actually get that partnership to have a season 2, let's say, or a sequel, is by getting people to actually view it positively and having that buzz around it. I mean, especially in the Middle East, right? Thankfully, we're in a region where purchasing power is not the lowest in the world. It's actually probably these days and in this year on the higher end of that spectrum. And so that's why I go back to KPIs. Great, but it's not the end all be all. Do people actually care? That's not the end all be all either, but maybe a combination of those two could help you formulate a picture as to, okay, let's do it again next year. Okay. And let's have a season 2.
So Helmy, I really was looking forward to this part of the conversation, because I think from talking to you, really starting to feel that passion for gaming, which means we really enjoy this next segment where we get to delve really into your background, where it all started, where the love came from.
Right.
So kind of want to understand from you, first console that you ever owned.
Oof, I was a bit late, man. It was a PS2.
That is late.
Yeah, so it wasn't something like a...
It's late or you're very young.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the middle there. I think hopefully it's in the middle there. But yeah, so I was born and I grew up and was raised in Palestine. And so for a while, we didn't actually have access to the latest and the newest. We moved to Canada in 2004 when I was 8. And a couple of years after that, I especially with friends in the communities and all of that, and I was, damn, that is cool. You know, you go over to a friend's place and you play it, and then suddenly you're on the way home and you go and you pick one up. And so the first one was a PlayStation 2. And I never looked back since, man. Since then, it's been PS3, PS4, PS5, but obviously also my PC, man. My love, you know. So I think, I started out on a PS2, but then now the PC is where it's at, for sure.
What was the first game that you fell in love with? Or was it, I imagine it was on a PS2.
The first game I fell in love with. Okay, Crazy Taxi has to be up there.
Interesting.
I mean, that's just a fun one, man. That's just a fun one. You're just driving around. It's just shenanigans, you know?
I own that on Dreamcast.
Actually.
So, yeah, I was Sega Dreamcast.
So you know.
I was Crazy Taxi. That was did you ever play that?
Do you know what? It's not ringing any bells. I can vaguely picture it in my mind, but I need
it
to
had
check
this
it out
kind of
afterwards.
cross blend between sort of a GTA.
Right.
It's
It was
making me think of that.
You could just
But
fly
almost
around,
like a Disney version, just nice and safe. You're not attacking anyone.
No, but you
no
could still
crimes committed.
smash into everything. But then the aim of the game was to pick people up and take them where they needed to go. But it was like a more mischievous type game like that. It was. I really enjoyed it. That's one of my
have to Google this afterwards.
fondest memories on the Dreamcast was Crazy Taxi.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's just one of those where it's just like a good time to play. It's not too serious. It doesn't take itself seriously. So it's just, you know, it's a very easy game to get into. But I think even earlier than that, and so, even though this is not a console, but even earlier than that, I played Prince of Persia on a computer. And that is an all-time classic right there, man. All-time classic, Prince of Persia. I'm trying to think of any other early games that I really fell in love with, but those are definitely the first two that come to my mind. What about you guys? I'm actually really curious.
First game for me when I was obviously young. I grew up a huge Sonic fan.
Nice.
I had the original sort of Mega Drive, so I think that Sonic was, when I look back, probably my first real love of games.
Nice.
That fondly I remember having like Sonic Teddy and all sorts. Like, was huge into that. My memory of gaming goes well beyond that because I grew up with Commodore 64. So it was all cartridges. Like, I remember I had a WWF at the time, not WWE, wrestling game that used to take about 3 hours to load. So you'd come home from school, you'd put the cartridge in, load it, go outside,
and before bed,
and then you'd come in, you'd play it for 5 minutes, and it would crash. And it was like that was your experience of it. But I've always been a huge FIFA fan. I had the original, which I think was '94. I had that on Mega Drive as well. But I think for me, the first real love was probably Sonic, I would say.
Nice. Dwayne?
For me, I'd probably go with Mortal Kombat.
Nice.
I think it was just awesome when it came out.
Yeah.
Characters were cool. I feel like for some reason I feel like the movie came out around the same time, around that kind of like, I think it was like 95, 93, but it was around that time when I was like 8, so I'm like playing games, and the movie just came out and it was just...
There's too much hype, man.
Yeah,
it's too much hype to contain
I'm
yourself.
way too
It's like,
excited. I was like, this is awesome. It's just like,
go watch the
game's
movie,
just like the film, you know.
Then go home and play the game, you know?
Yeah, just one hand in hand. So they went really well.
Nice, man. Yeah, Mortal Kombat is also a classic, I think. It's probably my favorite of the fighting game genre, let's say.
It's probably originally Street Fighter, I think.
Street Fighter is another
the original
classic as
Street
well.
Fighter. Mortal Kombat for me sticks out on Game Gear. I owned it on my Game Gear, and I used to play it. I used to play it on the way to school, on the way home from school. It would just be in the car. So when I got in the car, Mortal Kombat on.
Ready
to rock. So that was kind of in my mind. But Street Fighter was probably that early sort of fighting game, and then the other one on the side of that was kind of Streets of Rage.
Nice.
Streets of Rage 2,
classic.
Which was...
I'm gonna have to Google that one.
No,
Streets of Rage 2,
okay.
Highly recommend.
Yeah,
highly
vintage,
recommend.
vintage.
It is vintage.
We'll do. What was your first console, by the way?
First console was, I want to say Nintendo. The Super Nintendo, when Mario had the like little raccoon tail.
All those Mario games are
flying away. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So what was your favourite game, would you say, of the last decade? This is a big question.
Okay, are we going single player game here?
Whatever you want to go with.
Oof. Okay, if we're going with like a linear single player game, I'd probably have to say Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Man, I swear, whenever I talk with friends about this, I always say the same thing. That game is like more meditating than it is actually gaming, because it's just so serene and beautiful to look at as well.
We spoke about this with someone on the show before, and I said how my partner she was sat and would happily watch me play it because it's beautiful. You're running through the blossom fields. The storyline is so gripping and emotional in it. Is Ghost of Yotai this year? That's going to be
Are
awesome.
you both looking forward to the sequel?
100%.
Yeah, I think that's probably my most anticipated game of the next couple of years. That's how much I loved Ghost of Tsushima.
Really big statement.
There's nothing. It's one of those pieces of content or pop culture or creation, whatever you want to call it, that I think I had and I'm quite picky when it comes to these things, to be honest with you guys, but I had very little negative things to say about it.
Yeah,
man, the story, like you're saying, is incredible. The art direction and then how that translates into the actual graphics and how it looks is very good. You get extremely immersed because you're in this Heian area, I guess. Heian era Japan, maybe 1100, 1200. Something like that.
It's just how the game starts.
It's
like
just,
you start and you land on this beach in the middle of this huge war, and it's just... I was quite confused when I first turned the game on. Like, where am I going? What am I doing? You're like staggering around. And then the story just runs straight through it. Like you start, within the first 15 minutes, you're fighting the big boss. And I was like, what is this? Like, this doesn't normally happen right at the start. It was a bit like when you watch Marvel Infinity War. And Thanos appears and beats up Hulk at the start. And it's kind of like that same sort of emotion. And you're like, well, what has this happened? How is this so early? And then it takes you on this story throughout it and the relationships that you build throughout it, and they just constantly evolving. And I was very impressed with it. And even just the dynamics of the game is like directional. Most games now you pause or you open up a map.
Yeah.
This, you follow the wind.
Yeah.
So the wind guides you into the direction that you need to follow.
Interesting.
So it's just very well done. It was very, very well done. And I think Ghost of Tsushima will be, obviously, you would expect it to be even a level above, which... in that case, makes it really well anticipated.
Yeah. That I'm definitely looking forward to that. I mean, you spoke briefly about the immersion there. That's something I think they did really well. You don't even have to open up your minimap. You just
ready
follow
to go.
the wind. It's a special project for sure. You know, they got the key to the island, the publisher, as a result of the game.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's so impressive, man. That's really cool. The people there, the actual people, respected your project, even though maybe you've been there only a couple of times, or you visited the island a couple of times. You don't know the history as much as they do, obviously, but they respected it to the point that they went and presented them. I think Sucker Punch is the name of the dev, a key to the island, which I thought was very touching. That's nice.
Yeah.
Are you playing anything at the moment?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What are you playing at the moment?
Yeah. So I just spoke about a single player game, but I think those ones I actually don't play that much. Gaming is a very, very social thing for me. I hop on, I play with some friends, we talk about what's going on with us, we just chat, and then we kind of log off for the night. And it's kind of like a routine. I wish it was an everyday routine, but you know, adults gotta adult, right? So it's definitely more of a social thing for me, and because of that, I tend to play multiplayer games a lot more than single player games. And so for the past, maybe 12 years of my life, I've always had like one multiplayer game that I'm absolutely addicted to. So it's been something like Destiny, and then Overwatch, and I'm talking like really addicted. Like I will reach that top rank. Like I will, and I have.
It sounds a little bit unhealthy.
Yeah. Overwatch. Then I got into Valorant really, really deeply, cool. And now I'm in between Valorant and Marvel Rivals, which just dropped, and it's kind of exciting. It gives me that same kind of dopamine when you're climbing those ranks and you're playing against players and you're getting better yourself, but you're also doing it with friends. So that kind of community, that's what keeps me sticking around to those games for a really, really long time. So I would say right now, two I'm playing the most would be Valorant and Marvel Rivals.
I was waiting for Marvel Rivals when you were going through that list of games there. Yeah. It has to be Marvel Rivals there. But I've tried to get into Marvel Rivals, and I just... It's almost too much going on in there for me.
Did you like Overwatch?
No, I've never been like... So for me, it's kind of... It's new to an extent.
Okay.
And it's almost so much going on.
Right.
And I'm I'm a massive Marvel nerd. Ultimate Marvel nerd. So when I saw Marvel Rivals, and I've played all the Marvel games, what was the Midnight Suns and everything. I've gone through everything. And then when I put it on, I was like, I'm really excited because the characters are fantastic, but I just can't... It's just maybe too much for me.
Listen, if the genre of the game is not for you, even if you love the IP, it's just not for you, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason I ask if you liked Overwatch is because it's basically, honestly, very similar in terms of the genre and how the game plays and the team fights and all that stuff. So it kind of makes sense to me that even though you love Marvel and the IP, which we should definitely also talk about because I love Marvel. It still makes sense to me that you weren't so much into the game, even though you like the IP, man. I get it.
Fair enough.
What are you playing, bro?
At the moment, nothing. I bought 3 games maybe 2 weeks ago. So I bought Star Wars, The Last of Us Part 2.
Nice. Okay.
And there was a third game which I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe I want to say Death Stranding. Which I got because I heard the storyline was supposed to be really good.
It is.
So yeah. But I'm terrible. Like I said, I've got those 3 games there.
He's working too
I've
hard,
got 3
man.
games that I want to play in May already. And like there's like 2 more games that are coming out later this year. So it's like this year I really need to like commit to playing games.
We're both travelling next week, so the Steam Decks will be
Oh,
loaded,
yeah.
charged, and we'll be
Okay.
playing
So
through
that's
those.
when you'll get some time in.
Yeah, gaming time and skiing as well. But there will be some gaming.
The Steam Deck will come with you, and I'm sure you'll be able to knock out all the games you want to knock out there.
So what would be the last game that you purchased?
Oof. Last game I purchased. Oh man. Okay, I think I actually have the answer, even though, I mean, if you're watching and you don't know why that's such a difficult question, it's because a lot of the games these days are free. And if they're not free, then they maybe cost like, I'm talking about the Steam one specifically here, like $2 to play with friends and try it out for a couple of hours. But I didn't want to answer one of those. I want to answer for like an actual
Substantial purchase.
And I think it's Ghost Runner. So that's a game that came out a while ago. It's not anything specifically new, but I just happened... Ghost Runner. But I happened to come across gameplay, literally as I was scrolling Instagram Reels. And I was like, okay, wait, that looks cool. So I checked it out and I bought it. And it's just this like really super... I mean, I think I'm too old for this, honestly. But it's like, because I struggle to play the game, man. It's crazy. It's like this super high speed, high octane, cyberpunkish world in which you're just a guy who woke up and you're like running across all these walls and you're dodging bullets. And the whole kind of point of the game is that if you get hit once, you're done. And so you have to be very quick with your reactions. That's why I might be too old to play that game. So you have to be very quick and you have to be very on it. And it's just a lot happening, but it's extremely fun because of how high octane, how high speed it is. So I think that's the last one I purchased. I haven't finished it yet, but I will. I'm determined now, you know?
I'm going to check it out.
I'm determined now. But it's very, very entertaining.
It sounds very stressful, to be honest.
It is quite stressful, I'm not going to lie.
But yeah, I still will check it out.
Yeah, I don't know why us gamers do this to ourselves, man, you know? It's supposed to be time for not stress, but then you go hop on, you play Marvel Rivals, you lose like 7 games, you're like...
Not unwinded.
Yes, this is not unwinding, man.
As you get older, the reflexes they start disappearing.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy Call of Duty half as much as I used to when I was
felt that
younger.
was the last Mortal Kombat. I started playing it. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. It's more stress. I came onto unwind, and it's like this is no longer enjoyable anymore. It's
guys, I think we have to face the reality that those people that we used to be when we were young, we are now them.
I'm now load the game up, difficulty, notch it up a little bit. I just want to enjoy the game. Enjoy the story. I don't need the stress and the reflexes of trying to
there was a time when I was playing and the monitor would be here and the mouse and keyboard and I'd be laser focused. Now I just want to lay back on the couch, you know? I just want to
PlayStation
controller. Yes.
I did that recently. I completed God of War Ragnarok, which again, fantastic story throughout. But there's these berserker mode bosses in there. I'm not even going near them. I haven't got the time to dedicate to that because I can't. I tried a couple of times and I've just gone, no, fine. I've completed the actual main story. I'm happy with that.
I went on the exact same journey. I finished the main story. I came across one of them by accident. I didn't even mean to.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I got absolutely deleted and like 1 or 2 hits, whatever it was, from this guy. I decided to delete that memory from existence, you know. And then I was like, okay, sorry, never coming back to you again.
And then you mentioned this earlier. Ghost of Tsushima is kind of the one that you are. Is there anything else that you're really looking forward to at the moment?
Okay, for me to play, Ghost of Tsushima is definitely the one that I'm looking forward most to this year. But I mean, if we're just talking about like gaming, you have to say at some point GTA 6, right? It's supposed to come out this year. Yeah,
rumored September.
I love GTA, don't get me wrong. I'll play it, I'll be excited for it. But I think I'm even more excited to just see how people feel about it. I think it might be one of the most anticipated / hyped projects ever. Yeah. Like across not just gaming, but ever.
I'd probably say it is definitely up there.
Yeah.
From a
And
game
how are you
perspective,
gonna
I can't
manage
imagine
those
there's anything more
else that comes into
anticipated.
conversation with it
No.
from
Yes.
the gaming world, 100%.
How can you match those expectations?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have faith in Rockstar, but I'm a little bit worried as to how big and great and finished the game will be on launch.
Because 5
see.
was already fantastic.
Yeah, 5 was
So
really good.
then, yes, it's 10 years on.
I think that's what concerns me, the 10 years on part. It's not that it's a bad thing, but it's like, do we still want the same thing 10 years
But
later?
what have Rockstar's shipped within those 10 years? Like signature titles, what, Red Dead 2?
Yeah, that's it. That's
like
it.
the rest of the time has been dedicated to this project. So for the amount of years that have gone into it, you could only imagine how
Fingers crossed.
far advanced it's going to be. And
I'm
typically,
worried, man.
yeah, I'm intrigued
worried.
as to how interactive the map is going to be.
Sure.
It's all very well having a large map, but typically in a lot of the Grand Theft Autos, there's only 10 or so types of buildings that you can maybe enter.
Correct. I would say that's definitely something technologically that I would expect and some sort of progress on. I guess I'm thinking even more big picture when it comes to this game. I mean, people love GTA 5. They still play it. It's a decade later, man. Go play another game, man, you know? but it's just so hyped and there's so much expectations around it. And it's, you know, it's Grand Theft Auto. I mean, who didn't kind of somewhat grow up with one of them? And so I think what I'm most keen about is seeing how people react to the game and seeing what actually is going to contribute one way or another in a bad or good way massively to pop culture. I think that's what I'm most excited for. I can't wait for the memes. I can't wait for the jokes. I can't wait for the story.
Everyone will be talking about
Yes,
it, like
everyone will
non-stop.
be talking
Everyone's
about it.
feed, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn,
100%.
Facebook, it was
And
just going to
that's
be
what
constant.
I look forward to
Yeah.
the most. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, look, we've come to the end of the show now, and we probably could have continued this conversation for hours.
Definitely.
We will go offline and we'll talk Marvel. But Helmy, thank you very much for coming in and joining
Thank you
us
guys for
today.
having me. It's a
Absolute
privilege,
pleasure.
man. Really is. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you very much for joining us today. Really hoped you enjoyed that show and enjoyed listening to it. And we'll see you again very soon.